You have to look at things backwards from the patient's perspective. And I promise you, when you look at things from the patient's perspective, you will have more patients than you know what to do with.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Raving Patients Podcast. Today's episode is called the Forever Aligned Club, and I'm speaking with Dr. David Carter, an orthodontist in Augusta, Georgia. Before we begin, I kind of just want to do a couple of announcements. Number one is I want to thank the sponsors of the podcast, both Dental Intel and the doc sites. I appreciate your support and enabling me to do this on a weekly basis. Number two, I want to remind everybody about my event coming up September 29th and 30th in Delray Beach, Florida. It's called Supercharge Your Dental Practice. 18 speakers, 14 hours of CE, right on the beach at the Opal Grand Resort, focused on the business side of dentistry and the marketing side as well. So you can check out information at superchargeyourdentalpractice.com. Today's episode is with David Carter. I want to introduce David to you. Dr. David has been a resident of Augusta, Georgia since 1970. He is a graduate of Westminster High School, the University of Georgia, and the Medical College of Georgia School of Dentistry, where he also received his certificate in orthodontics. He holds dual appointments as Associate Clinical Professor in the Department of Orthodontics, MCG School of Dentistry, and the Department of Plastic Surgery, MCG School of Medicine. He is owner of Carter Orthodontics with multiple offices in Georgia and South Carolina. He is also the founder of Forever Aligned Club and holds several U.S. patents and related intellectual property. He has spoken nationally and internationally for Invisalign, American Orthodontics, Ormco Orthodontics, Henry Schein Orthodontics, and Forest Dent Orthodontics. He is also heavily involved in various research and development projects for these companies. Please welcome to the Raving Patients Podcast, David Carter. David, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, thanks, Lynn. Thanks for having me.
So to begin with, why don't you jump in and tell people, what is Forever Aligned Club?
Thanks. Well, Lynn, when I first started practicing orthodontics about 35 years ago, I realized that orthodontists are in the business of straightening teeth, not keeping teeth straight. And patients would always ask me for a quote unquote permanent retainer, which I realized there's no such thing as permanent. It's glued on. And so when I would tell patients, I'm going to put something in permanently, if that little bar came loose, teeth would shift because, shift happens. Mm-hmm. I have the U.S. trademark on that term, by the way, shift happens. And so then they blame us for the glue falling off of like one tooth and then the tooth shifting. And so by putting in a glued-in retainer, I realized that I all of a sudden became responsible for their orthodontic aftercare, okay, which most people think of as orthodontic retention. So I realized there's really no good way to keep teeth straight forever, which is what people, they just imagine that when you finish straightening their teeth, they're just going to magically stay straight forever, which is not true. And so because we didn't have a good system for keeping teeth straight forever, we decided to come up with an online platform that we have intellectual property on called Forever Aligned Club. And it's basically a membership-based business. When a patient becomes a member of Forever Aligned Club, it's basically a smile warranty. We like to make sure that their teeth stay straight forever, no matter what happens. So one thing is that I know orthodontists always charge a lot of money for orthodontic retainers. And I used to have to explain it to parents, why are my retainers $400 or $500? And they would get choked up just like you did, Len, when I tell them how much those retainers are. And they're like, I don't see $400 or $500 in that retainer. I'm like, well, and I'd walk through all the things that it took to make it, and they're like yawning, boring. It's still too expensive. I don't care how you explain it. And so about 10 years ago, I had a patient come in and for a retainer check, I'd straighten their teeth and I looked at the retainer and I didn't make that retainer. It was an Essex type of retainer. And I looked at it, I said, who made your retainer? I didn't make that. Oh, my general dentist did. I was like, oh my gosh, I knew it was fixing to happen. I was like, why did you have your dentist do a retainer for you instead of me? And she said, yours were too expensive. I said, how much did you pay him? She goes, $100. And she goes, yours were like I think ours at the time were like $350 for a piece of plastic. Okay. And I was like, dang, I missed something there because their patients, they want to keep their teeth straight affordably, and nothing I offer as an orthodontist was affordable. And so it started me thinking there's got to be a better system. Well, I was speaking for Invisalign at the time too. And so just through data that I collected, I found out that about 70% of Invisalign patients in my practice were former orthodontic patients, which made me, I was like, wait a second, what's going on? I bet that number is pretty universal across the board. I bet you that most patients that go into Invisalign or any of these other various, into relapse, they want Invisalign. But then a few years ago, along comes another company, Smile Direct Club. Okay. Kind of chopped the legs out from Invisalign a little bit, didn't they? And they offered something that I thought nobody would actually do. I'm like, that'll never work. They called it Smile Care Club to begin with, which I thought from a marketing standpoint, I'm like, I don't even understand what the name of that company is. Smile Direct Club. I still don't understand what the heck it is. But at least when they came out with their advertising, Smile Direct Club actually held up a clear piece of plastic and said, this is an aligner. And I was like, well, that's something that Invisalign never did. They never actually told the patient what an aligner was. Patients would mistakenly think that they would come in and they get this one little device that would straighten their teeth. I'm like, oh, no. It's a series of these things, and you got to wear them 20 plus hours a day from their work. And I don't tell them about these little bumps I got to put all over their teeth. And so it started me really thinking, we're charging too much to keep people's teeth straight. So what we did with Forever Line Club is we started filing for patent protection on our platform, where patients can sign up for a very low cost membership fee of just $99. And for $99, we will store a scan of their upper and lower arch, and they can order affordable retainers to ship directly to the patient anytime they want. And the membership lasts 5 years. And so patients are like, this is almost too good to be true. How much are the retainers? I'm like, well, let me think about that. Let's do $49. In fact, you know what? If you get them auto shipped to you every 6 months or every 12 months, let's reduce that price to $39. Patients fall all over it. They're like, let me get a scan of my teeth from my dentist or my orthodontist, or let me send a model to you and we'll upload the scan. So we store it on a HIPAA compliant server, which Amazon Web Services, their servers are all HIPAA compliant. And so anytime a patient wants a retainer made and shipped, they push a button, says, I want the retainer made. We manufacture it, bill their credit card, and ship it to them directly. Now, there's also a high probability that patients' teeth are going to move, even if they have multiple retainers. And why is that? I'll ask you, Dr. Lynn. Do you know why?
Compliance, wearing them.
Compliance. That is the Achilles heel of removable aligners. Always will be. Because if a patient has an option of wearing something or not wearing it, I can tell you most of them are not going to wear it at some point. At some point, they're going to get tired of wearing those things, okay? And so I'll say it again. The shift happens. And so now you need a small batch of aligners to re-straighten their teeth, because over 60% of patients' teeth shift within the first 5 years after orthodontic treatment. I collected a lot of data when I was speaking for Invisalign, and I was like, wow, that's a lot. And again, I was like, why is that? And I was like, well, it's because compliance is always going to be an issue. So our membership platform offers affordable retainers and affordable retreatment aligners shipped directly to the patient. And it's all done online. And, when we started the business, I didn't really think about like growing it nationally or internationally. And I surely didn't think about it growing as a private equity type of play. But when a couple of friends of mine here living in Augusta who are members of Augusta National approached me like, hey, you looking for any investors? I was like, what? You would invest in something like this? And they're like, oh, and we got some friends that would invest. So next thing I know, we get some private investors to invest. And as of this past March, our valuation's at $20 million. We were a startup company 5 years ago, starting with zero. Now we're at 20 million and growing rapidly. And I think what will happen is over time, Forever Line Club will start to, forgive the pun, take a bite out of the bulk of removable aligner patients from Invisalign, Smile Direct Club, Candid Co, all those other aligner companies, simply because we have a more affordable option of direct consumer retainers. So if you always have a retainer close by and you have some type of vibrating mouthpiece to kind of shimmy the retainer back into place, you really should never allow your teeth to shift very far. So we just never want your teeth to get too far from the way that you finished. And I think that's what most people want. Long answer to your short question.
That's fine.
Sorry.
That's fine. So let's break it down a little bit, because obviously this podcast is obviously very much for dentists and team members to listen to. You're obviously looking to attract patients to it as well, but you need doctors behind this. So can you just kind of go into the role the doctor plays, what the event is to them, is to being a part of Forever Aligned Club? Can you go into all those specific things before we talk about some other things?
So, unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm an orthodontist, and I think like most orthodontists think, because we've always been able to, charge a high fee for retainers, we look at things differently than a general dentist would. From an orthodontist standpoint, we know that if somebody's sitting in my orthodontic chair, we're in the business of straightening teeth. So you have to offset the fact that if somebody's getting a retainer, a low price retainer, and you got to sit them in a chair and have somebody scan them or take an impression, the cost goes way up. Whereas general dentists, there's just a lot more general dentists that are interested in doing something like this. Unfortunately, orthodontists got really heavy involved in Invisalign, and we kind of bought into the concept that people really want removable aligners. And I will agree that people they want them, but will they wear them? So we get a lot of patients that come in thinking they want Invisalign. And then what I have to do is I turn it around and say, look, you know what? I don't know that you're going to end up wearing these very well. And then I tell them the number one tooth aligner in the world are braces. Those are called fixed tooth aligners, right? Not removable. And it always will be the number one choice. After 20 plus years of Invisalign patents, they only captured roughly about 93% of the entire orthodontic marketplace. And so you have to wonder, they said that aligners were going to completely replace braces. And they never did because of compliance. So, we see it's easy for an orthodontist to buy into these ideas that people really want removable appliances, and they do want them, but will they actually wear them? And only about 47% of patients finish removable aligner treatment. So the question for anybody watching this podcast, are you going to set your patients up for failure? Because if you tell them that they would be a good candidate for removable aligners, the data shows that the majority of people will not wear them. They won't finish. So, what we're looking for now is we're looking for other doctors, like-minded doctors, orthodontists, general dentists, oral surgeons are in a great position for orthodontic aftercare because, locally, I had an orthodontist an oral surgeon who actually invested in Forever Aligned Club. And I asked him this question. I said, why do you take out wisdom teeth? And he kind of looked at me funny. I'm like, what reason? Besides pathology? He goes, well, keep your teeth straight. I said, so let me go one step further and let me ask you this question. This is the oral surgeon I'm asking. I said, do you agree with me that removing wisdom teeth is an orthodontic procedure performed by an oral surgeon? And he goes, yes, it is. Okay. So I think oral surgeons, ones that have enough guts to realize they're probably in the perfect position to do it. But I think general dentists looking at this, if you're looking to really, take good care of your patients, you can become a Forever Aligned Club provider. It doesn't cost you anything. You can contact me at my email address. And I think, Len, you're going to share it at the very end. You can contact me and I'll put you together with the team, but we're looking to expand nationwide. And we don't want everybody in the world. We don't want every dentist in the world being a Forever Aligned Club provider. Okay. Because we've got in the South, they say, if you got a good fishing hole, you don't want to tell everybody about it. You'll take them there blindfolded, right? Well, I don't want, in franchise business, you don't have McDonald's setting up another McDonald's across the street to compete with each other. You just don't. And we're not going to do that either. We want our providers to be successful and we want to set them up for success. So they'll get exclusive areas and we'll help them with the marketing and then the whole, concept of how do you keep patients' teeth straight forever? Because I asked the question, and Len, you had it written down at the very beginning. What's the lifetime value of an orthodontic patient? It's a lot more than we think, right? Invisalign became a $60 billion company treating the majority of their patients, retreatment patients. Sorry, that was another long
No,
answer.
hey, there's nothing wrong. Look, I'm happy when my guests just kind of talk and I don't have to ask that many questions. So I want to break it down one more step because, yes, you need doctors. You give them some exclusivity. What's in it for them? I think someone's going to listen to it. They're going to say, okay, what's the catch? This is too good to be true. What do I get? How do I make money if they make any money at all? Talk about that.
Yes. Thank you. So we as a company, we're really looking at this differently. We're not the ones making all the profit. What we do is we make sure that we get the lowest price on very reputable, high quality labs. We get the best price for retainers and for aligners. And these labs actually mail them directly to the consumer for the provider. And so all we do is we find out what the cost is, which we get as low as possible. And then we say, hey, doctor, you're going to get the commission on every single piece of plastic that these patients buy. Okay. And all we do as a company, we want to just make money off of every transaction online, basically like an ATM. We just do like a shipping and handling fee. Okay. Because we don't, as a doctor, I want to take control back of this whole industry. We've just kind of completely lost control of it and put, a lot of profit into these corporate aligner companies' pockets. And I think we're really poised to put a lot more money back into dentist pocket, whether it's a general dentist, whether it's an orthodontist, whether it's an oral surgeon, anybody that wants to do this. They get a commission check. It's all done online. They get paid, virtually. It's a really pretty neat system. And we can walk through anybody wants to be a provider, we can walk them through how it all works. So, if you get paid to really do nothing, to let the labs just, the patient decides when they want to buy these things, all kind of stuff on Forever Line Club. I mean, patients want to get their teeth whitened. Okay, let's do some whitening gel in there. I mean, let them buy the goop. Let them whiten their teeth as white as they want with these retainers. And then if their teeth get sensitive, sell them fluoride gel to desensitize it, right? Just figure out ways that you can sell direct to consumer and make as much money online. Almost like it's, the analogy is like you have your own little Amazon store online as a provider. And
then what is required of the dentist who joins Forever Align Club? Do they need to have a scanner? Obviously, I know you mentioned impressions and scanning the models as well, but what's the requirement for the providers?
Obviously, if you have a scanner, that's great. But, really still most dentists don't have scanners. We get, we're creatures of habit. And so we still take really good impressions. And so, if you'll send us just good models, dental models of the patient, we'll scan the models and upload them on behalf of the doctor who sends them in, the provider that sends them in for the patient. And you don't even need a scanner, to be honest with you. Just give us good quality models and we'll take it from there.
And then let's look at the other aspect of things, because people are going to be their head may be spinning around and trying to figure out the economics behind this. Let's say a general dental practice right now, and they're doing Invisalign. Their patient ends treatment. They provide them with Viveras. They use Vivera program, which I think is $275. Well, last time I remember, maybe $300 now that it costs them, and they're usually charging anywhere from $500 and up. They're making $200 plus on that, not having to do anything because they just click a button and Invisalign sends it to them. So just to touch base on this, what is the disadvantage to doing it that way versus the advantage of using Forever Align Club? Talk about those differences there.
So several years ago, Invisalign, since I was speaking for them, they approached me with my Forever Align Club, because they knew that I had filed for patent protection on it. And we talked about their Vivera retainers. I said, let me tell you the problem with this whole Vivera retainer idea that they have. You'll sell me 4 uppers and 4 lower retainers for $275. He said, that's correct. I said, so now if I only sell one, if a patient says I only want an upper, then I have to sell that for $275 or I'm upside down. And they're like, that's correct. So I said, so really you make the money and I don't. They're like, well, you can just sell them all. Sell them, 4 uppers and 4 lowers. I'm like, for how much? You get your $275, which is still ridiculously too high for these pieces of plastic. They're making these things for well under $1 a piece. I'm like, so you're assuming that the patient will pay $275. And I will tell you right now, this whole concept started because that patient didn't want to buy my expensive retainers and went to their dentist and did it for $100. I'm like, still huge profits at $100. So if you're selling your retainers, if you're a general dentist and orthodontist and you're selling your retainers for $100 a piece, they can buy 2 of mine for the price of 1 of yours. Okay. You want to make it almost like in corporate terms, they talk about planned obsolescence, right? We know the data shows that patients are going to be irresponsible and they're not going to wear these retainers. So because we know they're not going to wear them and they've spent $275 on one, they're not going to come back to you to buy a second one because it's too expensive, or a third one or a fourth one. Our very first investor said, this is the best idea ever. He goes, I bet I spent more money on retainers than I did on straightening my kids' teeth. So I bet you probably did, right? So you have to look at things backwards from the patient's perspective. And I promise you, when you look at things from the patient's perspective, you will have more patients than you know what to do with. And again, being direct to consumer is very interesting because a lot of these patients in the teenage years, when they go off to college, what's the first thing that they're going to do? Not listen to their parents. They're off at college. Okay. Going to forget to wear their retainers. And then what happens? Shift. Jimmy, show you the hat again.
Yeah, shift happens.
Shift happens. All right. And so they love this because, oh, mom, I forgot to wear my retainer. My teeth is starting to shift. Oh gosh, we signed you up for Forever Line Club. Go online, just order it. They'll ship it directly to you. You know, at college, you're off at college. Wear it. Buy the vibrating. We have a vibrating mouthpiece called OrthoVibe that we created that we have intellectual property on too. And so you put a retainer, it's going to be tight. All right. But if you wear this OrthoVibe appliance, okay, for 20 minutes a day for a few weeks, depending on how much your teeth have shifted, that retainer will actually start to settle back down on the teeth and realign the teeth. In fact, now we're working with a new material called Graphy, Grphy. If you haven't seen it, you need to look at it because it's very interesting. It's basically, if you think about it, it's a stretchable plastic. It's the best way I can describe it. And so when you warm it up under warm water, it actually starts to soften. And so when you put it in your mouth, it will start to harden a little bit because it drops down to your body temperature. Okay. If you run it under tap water to 120 degrees, let's say, okay, and you put it back in your mouth, as it cools down to body temperature, it starts to harden again. It'll actually start putting pressure on your teeth and realigning your teeth, very much like a spring retainer. In fact, we sell spring retainers direct to consumer. All right. So you think about that. Yes.
Let's talk about, I mean, obviously we know who the major player is in the space. It's Invisalign. They're the big behemoth. Yep. But once their patent expired, obviously hundreds of companies have come out with aligners and aligner types. So in your ideas in this, comparative to the Forever Line Club, what major players exist? What minor players exist? How can you control everything?
You control it by offering the patient the best price. You know, it doesn't matter the plastic, unless you're using this direct printed graphy material or some of these other ones that are coming out, the plastic is the plastic. Vivera can talk about, we have the most amazing plastic, it's made of kryptonite or whatever. I'm like, great. When you throw it away, your dog eats it. I promise you, it ain't worth any more than just a regular piece of plastic. All right. So unfortunately, dentists, we buy into some of the same marketing that the consumer buys into. Oh, this material Vivera. So I remember I asked Invisalign when they were looking to invest or actually buy my intellectual property for Forever Line Club. I said, let me tell you, Vivera, that is like, what is that from a marketing standpoint? How would a patient understand what that is? To me, it sounds like it's either a resort in Mexico or it's a cocktail you'd have by the pool. Oh, I'll have a Vivera on ice, please. And they laughed and they're like, yeah. I'm like, that's the dumbest name I've ever heard of for something like this. It doesn't mean anything in the patient's eyes. And one of the ladies who was on the call with Invisalign, she goes, yeah, I came up with that name. I was like, sorry. She goes, no, we know it's really bad. I was like, it doesn't mean anything to the patient. I was like, our retainers, Forever Align Club retainers, you can buy them forever. Okay. Pretty simple. Don't get too complicated. Tell the patient exactly what they're buying. All right. And so, all you got to do is do the math And once you do the math, you realize that selling Vivera retainers, that it's never taken off. I promise you, they want it to take off bad. It's never taken off because they know that the math doesn't lie. The $275, if it's $300, whatever it is now, or whatever you charge, if you charge that much for these things, you're never going to make the profit. Invisalign's always going to make the profit, okay? Because the patient won't buy 2 or 3 of them, okay? And so Invisalign can make it sound real simple. Oh, we'll just ship them directly, to you or directly to your patient or whatever. Patients aren't going to buy them for that price point. So
before we shift gears to some of the Q&A I wanted to do with you, other than which we'll get your contact information and some final information about Forever Line Club, anything else that you wanted to cover within this part of the podcast?
When I went to the American Association of Orthodontics meeting this past April up in Chicago, there were so many aligner companies there making these removable aligners. And I think all these companies are buying in the fact that people want these aligners. I'm like, you know what? Most people think they want Invisalign. And then when they walk in the door and realize they got to wear these things, I'm sitting there going, how can these companies all survive? They're all competing for the same space, which is really not as big as they make it out to be. So I would just encourage dentists, make up your own mind, do the math. Just sit down and do the math yourself. Because when you start doing the math, you realize people will buy a whole lot more products if you make it affordable. And that's what we do on Forever Line Club.
All right. So let's switch gears for about 5 minutes. We'll talk about some Q&A questions on which are all business related stuff. So the first one, David, for you is what business related book has inspired you the most, or what is your favorite book?
First one that comes off the top of my hand, besides the Bible, by the way, because I am a believer, and the Bible's like a blueprint for business. I mean, it's so good. But a second one would be The Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. Excellent book, because I spent probably the first 25 or 30 years in my practice basically with the mindset of an employee, not as the business owner. And when I realized that, I was paying myself a bunch of money as a W-2 employee, and then Uncle Sam loved it because the more I made, the more they get. I was like, wait a second, math's not adding up again. I got to pay myself less, so I'm taxed less, put myself in a better tax bracket, okay, legitimate tax bracket. But then I got to figure out how do I move money into different corporations that I set up so that, I can protect my wealth. You can't rely on a financial advisor to look after your money, because they're looking after everybody else's money too. So The Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. I get no royalties on that, by the way. If you buy one, just buy it and just enjoy.
Okay. What distracts you the most every day?
Oh my gosh. Right there.
Your phone.
Like yesterday was my birthday, so I went to my farm and I got away from everything. I put that on silence, and man, you talk about just getting quiet, okay, and without all those distractions, social media and everything.
Perfect. Do you make a to-do list every day, weekly? When do you do it?
I do, and I've got to be. That's one thing I'm going to do even better this year. Is I want to be very intentional. I don't think people just wing it every day. You've got to be intentional, and you can set goals, 1 month goals, 6 month, yearly goals, whatever. But you really need to write down a list. What I've done, I'm very visual. And so I do it visually 2 different ways. One way to do it, there's a free program called Draw, DRAW.io, draw.io, which allows you to put these little bubble boxes and circles and stuff and connect them with lines, so you can kind of organize your thoughts on a computer. But there's another one that just came out that's even, for me, in my mind, is even better. It's called Mila, M-I-L-A, Mila Notes. And it allows you to drop video, your own video or video online into their photographs and do almost the same thing, but it's much more visual.
Got it. Describe Mondays for you in one word.
Chaotic.
I knew you were going to say that. I had a feeling that's what you were going to say. That's a lot of people's answers. So, especially
at 8:00, because first people come in and have something something broke or wire stuck over the weekend. I'm like, okay, all these emergencies right off the bat.
All right. What do you wish you had known when you first started out?
I wish I'd taken more business classes. You learn from the School of Hard Knocks right? But there's a lot you can learn so much online now, especially on YouTube. I'm like obsessed with YouTube videos now because, most businesses are pretty much the same. You can learn a lot from other, especially big business. I love stealing ideas from other, businesses that are not even in the dental world. And people look at me like, oh, you're so smart. And I'm like, I promise you ain't that smart. Okay. I'm pretty sure my mama dropped me a few times as a baby, so I ain't that smart. All right. But you can learn from other companies for sure.
What is one thing that doesn't add value to your life, but you still enjoy doing it?
Probably eating. I'm a diabetic now, so I've really got to watch my diet. And I'm a stress eater, man. I'll just throw some carbs back in no time. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure I even knew what I just ate. I just shove it down my pie hole.
What is one subscription you can't live without?
Amazon. Sorry. I just, it's just it's so easy to buy stuff and just have it shipped directly to you. It's like, you get your fix. You're like, buy something and get a little gift tomorrow.
Okay. What unique skill do you think you have that has made you become successful?
Establishing patient rapport. I think most dentists really don't, they think they're better with patients than they really are. I mean, most of us are just really high paid technicians, but very few have good interpersonal skills. And so I would encourage any dentist, to learn how to be a little bit more of a salesperson. All right. Cause it's all about sales. And let me tell you what, the sales is not about me. It's about the patient. What do they want? Don't forgive the pun. Don't ram something down their throat that they don't want. We're taught to give these ideal treatment plans and then they don't do them. And we wonder why they didn't do them. They're too expensive. Give them what they want.
Got it. Okay. And then the last question, who is the one person that you love to have as a mentor?
My dad. He's still alive. He's 91. My dad is actually a retired orthodontist. He changed careers at 40 with 4 kids, was an aeronautical engineer, and went back to school to become an orthodontist. And he's been just, I hope, I can't even fill his shoes, but I'm trying to every day.
That's great. Awesome answers. You did good at those. So David, people listening to the podcast, they want to learn more about Forever Aligned Club. Give them the information they need to reach out to you, to join, go through that spiel.
So if you're interested, I would love to just talk to you. If you're a doctor, I would love to just talk to you directly instead of passing you off to my team, to begin with. So you can just email me at founder@foreveralignedclub.com and I'll respond to you. And if you want to be a provider, we'd love to have you. If you'd love to be an investor, we'll let you be an investor and it won't cost you any money. We'll accept some of your commission as payment for equity. And so we grow the company and we'll end up being bigger than Invisalign. We will. Because we're not an aligner company. We're a smile warranty company.
Okay. Perfect. So you gave your email. It's founder@foreveralignedclub.com. If you want information about it, please reach out to David. David can provide you obviously with everything you need. I really appreciate you joining me today, David, to kind of give your information regarding your product. And guys, if you want to reach out, please do. If you think one of your colleagues may be interested, please go ahead and share this episode with them. Send them the link to it. Tell them to listen to what David said. Reach out to David as well, and get a little piece of the action here. So, guys, thank you so much for joining me, or David, thank you much for joining me today. To the viewers and the listeners, thank you so much for being there and listening to me on a weekly basis. It's nice to know I have a lot of fans out there. I meet them. I see them at trade shows. So I do appreciate it. It's why I do what I do. If you are interested in, my event, Supercharge Your Dental Practice, you can go to superchargeyourdentalpractice.com. You can use the code RAVING, RAVING, to save $100 on registration. The event is September 29th and 30th, 2023 in Delray Beach, Florida at the Opal Grand Resort. I look forward to seeing everyone there. And David, thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of the Raving Patients podcast. Remember, your reputation matters. Until the next episode, guys, have a great day.
Thanks, Len.